Inmate at the Douglas County Jail. To accept this call, press 0. To refuse this call, hang up. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. For more information about our privacy policy, please visit www.connectnetwork.com. After the beep, press 5 to accept this call. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. Stay on the line to accept this call. Thank you for using GTL.
Hello?
Hey, it's Mike.
Hi, Mike. How are you tonight?
Another day in hell. But how are y'all? I heard y'all had a good turnout yesterday, and it was a good all-around response.
Yep, nobody died, and about 560 gun toters showed up.
That's a good thing. Real Americans acting like real Americans.
You got that
telling
right.
Telling these Nazis that it's time for them to go.
Yep, you would have loved it.
Question, how were these people all brought together? Was it like people tweeting each other or some kind of social media, or just, because, I mean, getting that many people to be aware of what's going on is one thing. When the mainstream media doesn't really touch on it.
That's a very good question, Mike, and I have an answer for you. It's kind of an interesting one. You know, people came from Tennessee, Louisiana, Ohio, Arizona. They came from North Carolina, all over the country. And if you ask me, it was because of Facebook.
Okay.
Oh, and of course, YouTube.
Right.
But let me say this. Right now, there's a big push to get people to quit Facebook. Oh, Facebook, they steal your data. Well, if you don't put stuff in there that you don't mind them stealing, then it's a great tool.
Yep.
And I think they're trying to take that tool away because I believe that the conservatives took over Facebook and all the kids got off and they're more interested in something called Instagram. Yep. And I think what's left on Facebook are Christian conservatives.
You may very well be right. I remember there was something they called a flash mob, that they were having all these kids show up at these malls and go into stores and do mayhem and stuff. And then they took that same technology in Memphis, and they had all of these people there were outraged about these killings of black people. They walked onto the Memphis, Arkansas bridge. 10,000 people shut down the Memphis, Arkansas bridge, and the police were threatening and doing all this nonsense. Finally, the chief of police got out there and walked with them, and it's like, what's the deal? And they're saying, like, we're tired. We're tired of your officers shooting and killing our young men, and this is our statement. We'll shut this city down one way or the other if we have to. You'll either listen to us or we'll shut it down. He says, I'm listening. Then he walked with them for about 2 hours as this thing shut down over the course of about 6 hours. And they said, okay, you'll listen. We'll leave. And now, shortly thereafter, they walked to Beale Street, and then they had, it was probably 20 mayhem, young, thuggish guys that were probably on the payroll for the government to come in there, knock over trash cans, break windows, stuff like that. And then they started arresting people that were not the mayhem causers, claiming that they were part of it as a way to disrupt and detract from the power of the people, and to make it sound like the only people that are in these rallies are mayhem creators, when in fact it was people like you and me that are just willing to take a stand for the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they call them agent provocateurs, and that's what I was most concerned about yesterday in this big march with everybody armed, was some whack job going off and then God knows what happening. So I had everybody praying for Rudy, and I stayed home. It was like a 10-hour drive to get there and back.
Right. And, you know, that's what had happened back, you know, at one time, a long time ago in the Alamo, where you had people hold up in this church. Santa Ana wanted his cannon back, and they're like, no, that's the only thing keeping us alive is the fact that we got a gun.
Right.
And so though they were overnumbered and outgunned, these volunteers from Tennessee, as it were, they went down there because it was the right thing to do. It's like, we got people wanting to remain free and not be oppressed. Mm-hmm. We're going to go down there and stand with them. And that's what they did. And, they don't talk much about those people from Tennessee and how they got the name the Volunteers and things where people have, like George Washington. He actually came to the aid of the Cherokee when these, invaders came into Tennessee and just started squatting on their land and said, we're going to take over this land. He said, look, that's their land. That's Cherokee land. You can't just go take their land. They said, watch us. And he got a couple of thousand of the military people that he had. This is after the Revolutionary War. And had these people down there to go in there. But at the end of the day, the people in the military weren't going to fire upon their, quote, fellow man. In other words, Europeans weren't going to fire upon Europeans. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, they stopped because it wasn't them. And that's an example of how what Washington did was the right thing, but what Washington's men did was not. They didn't have the same mindset, and that's what you sit back and you let one group be destroyed, the Cherokee or the Native Americans effectively across this country, have their land stolen, have their resources taken, everything done and being murdered effectively by a corrupt government. Then when the government gets tired of oppressing them and looks for somebody else to oppress through taxation, who's going to stand with you? Nobody. You done demonstrated that you're not willing to help your neighbor, so your neighbor's not going to help you. So in various forms, the government will seize and steal whatever they want to steal. And if people come together and stand together, even though it might not be your fight, you're willing to stand with your neighbor because it's the right thing to do. And then that's why you have to stand with that. A friend of mine, Pastor Andre Guy, he's a black minister, big black guy. He's got a radio talk show. He's the one that helped me get into radio. And we had a show that I was on, and then the owner of the station invited me to do my own show. Well, this guy that used to be a Grand Master, Wizard, whatever, the Ku Klux Klan that ran for Congress down in Louisiana, David Duke, came up to Tennessee to do a Euro 2000 conference. This is in 2009. And the place that he was going to have it at, the people that worked there that were black were peeing in their iced tea and other drinks and stuff to serve them, and there were death threats against them. And it was all over the news. And, black people were saying, we see them, we're going to kill them, period. And, that's a crime to just publicly state you're going to kill somebody, assassinate somebody is a crime, but nothing was done about it. And I contacted the organization that they was about, and I said, what is your plan? What is your format, your program? What are y'all trying to promote? And the guy said, well, here, talk to David Duke. Well, I'm talking to David Duke all of a sudden. He says, well, we're trying to promote what we view as Eurocentric culture because we see that this country is vastly changing towards different cultures of different races that are immigrating, and we don't want to see our culture be pushed to the side to where we can't practice our culture, and basically we're stopped. And I said, well, I can understand that, but you're not talking about destroying other cultures, are you? And he said, no, not at all. We're just trying to preserve what we view as our own culture. And I said, would you allow me to bring a gentleman who has the exact same views as you that might be able to share that with the people of his culture? And he said, no, not at all. And I said, well, where are y'all going to be at? He told me where he was going to be, which was a secret. Nobody's supposed to know, so I held it in confidence. I called Pastor Andre Guy, and I showed up with him. I said, this is a gentleman that, too, has interest in preserving his culture, and I said, maybe you ought to take notes and share with each other what your culture is, because I know what you both said to me individually. You're basically wanting to preserve the exact same things. And they spent about 30 minutes talking and realized, yeah, we're not trying to destroy each other. What we want is we just want freedom at the end of the day. And, you know, they all want to celebrate Christmas, follow Christ, celebrate various holidays, have safe neighborhoods, good schools, and be able to pick and choose when they don't want to have government education. They want to be able to teach their kids as they see fit. They had a good talk, and then Channel 13 News put Pastor Guy and me on the news, and he's talking. He said, you know, I'd always heard that man hated me, and I talked to that man, and I looked him in his eye, and I didn't see hate. He said, I saw a man who wanted basically what he viewed as the ability to raise his family in his choosing and be left the heck alone, and that's no different than me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked for probably 30 minutes, but they cut and pasted. There's only maybe a minute or two total on the news blurb, but I said, this is all about freedom of speech. If you deny one man his right to speak, you don't have to show up and listen. But if you stop him from being able to freely promote what his views are, next they're coming after you.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people that views they don't want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what this nation is supposed to be founded on. We're supposed to support each other's rights to freedom of speech, and that's why I'm here. I brought these two men together who didn't know each other. Now they do. Now they realize they've got a lot more in common. And that's what the system hates, is us coming together in alliances. Even though we might have differing views on some things, we can still support each other when it comes to the basic foundations of what this country's supposed to be about.
That's what scares the controllers the most, is blacks and whites getting together.
Yeah, and his website is revelationchristiancenter.com. If y'all search Pastor Andre Guy, and it's probably a couple of different places, but when you find his website, he's in Memphis. On his website, under photos and pictures and stuff like that, at the very bottom, the very last one, you'll see a picture of him standing next to David Duke, and you'll see me standing next to both of them.
Cool. I'm going to look for that.
And the reason I'm mentioning is this, is that, you know, these are high-profile people, and only through just me picking up the phone was I able to put these two people together on an issue that they had commonality over. Mm-hmm. So my technique is to bring people together where they have common interest, and to show them that if you stand together, support each other in their right to practice their God-given rights, then it'll be less likely someone will take yours from you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So these people, as you said, these people from across the country came and stood together because it's the right thing to do.
That's right. Yeah, I have no problem with David Duke. Every other nationality is supposed to be proud of their heritage and, you know, trying to preserve their own. I mean, people come to this country, they don't even learn English.
Right. And the thing I talked to David Duke about is that when he was involved with the Klan, that was when he was a lot younger, and
right.
his maturity has, mm-hmm. you know, come to the forefront. For, you know, he's got a doctorate now. He's very highly educated.
I know. I'm on his mailing list.
Yeah, and, you know, that's the thing. When the original Klan was created and Nathan Bedford Forrest was part of that, it wasn't to have anything against the blacks at all. It was about stopping the carpetbaggers. The bankers from up north would come down. The southern farmers were starving. They were broke. And they said, we're going to loan you money so you can buy your equipment and seed and things. You don't have to pay us back until the harvest. And these men and women didn't read for squat, and they were signing agreements that allowed them to get the loan, but they had to pay it off by August. Most farmers know your crop doesn't come in and you don't harvest until the end of August. And so the bankers would come in with the sheriff and say, well, you didn't pay us up.
You have 1 minute remaining.
The harvest isn't complete. And they said, yeah, but your loan was due last week. And the bankers would foreclose and steal the farms. And all across the South, most large properties were stolen after the Civil War by the bankers. And that's how the bankers ended up acquiring most of Mississippi and Tennessee.
Wow, well, that's a very important history lesson. Thank you, Mike.
Well, it's crimes like that that need to be exposed and talked about. And, you know, the first time I ran for office was against Dan Bird, the owner of the Bird Bank, Bank of Bartlett, and that's how they acquired all their wealth, is their grandfather and father stole farms, that same technique, and they're still doing it today. They make loans that they know people aren't going to be able to satisfy, and people don't read the fine print, and boom, they take your land or home.
Yep, you're right.
Any word from Mrs. Parsons or anything else I need to know?
Nothing specifically, no. They might give Sue bail.
Thank you for using GTL.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mike, for the history lesson. That was a really good one and very important. The worst thing the New World Order can think of is blacks and whites uniting together.
This call, press 0. To refuse this call, hang up or press 1. To prevent calls from this facility, press 9. Hello. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. For more information about our privacy policy, please visit www.connectnetwork.com. After the beep, press 5 to accept this call. This call is from a corrections facility and is subject to monitoring, recording, and the location of your phone will be obtained. Stay on the line to accept this call. Thank you for using GTL.
I don't consent to recording of my call. Was that Sue is going to be given a bond, or they're just talking about it?
They're going to decide. She found somebody to give her, she didn't say how much the bail is, but she might get it, and she found somebody to fund it.
She didn't say how much it was, though?
No, she didn't.
I'd be interested to know how much it is. Did you talk to her, or was that her son that called?
That was her who told us. She calls us pretty frequently.
Okay, she's got somebody that's helping her financially to make these calls, because I'm sure they probably cost about as much as what I'm having to pay, which is $4 a call.
Yeah, oh boy.
Yeah, it's a ripoff. Y'all never were able to get a Google number for here, I guess. I think Rudy got one for the Memphis area, but when I got transferred, that was kind of where it stopped, because I think they wanted to charge a lot to get the Google number transferred. So, yeah. I have not been able to reach Mr. True since Friday. I thought he was going to try. Did y'all ever email him that information from... I think Mel sent some information via email. It was like 200 pages or something like that. If it's printed front back, it was information from what's her name, Hanson.
No, but you could go direct and leave us out of that loop. You could tell her to email Rich.
Well, I would if I could, but for some reason, calling her doesn't go through. But anyway, no problem. I didn't know if y'all had it sent to y'all, if y'all could forward it to Rich. He said he would print it. He just...
Okay, we'll try and find out. What about Rich? I mean, what area code are you needing?
To call who?
What area code are you?
Oh, I'm at 402.
402. Okay, I'll write that down.
Yeah, it's... 402 is the... area code for the entire state of Nebraska. Yep. They just got a new prefix for this area over here because they ran out of numbers, but there may still be some. Yeah, I guess you have to look at the area code and then the first 3 digits to get something that's local.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the second commandment is love your brother as yourself, and it doesn't say your black brother or your white brother. And there's also that poem that first they came for the socialists, and then the communists, and then they came for me, and no one was standing.
Yeah, and I'm listening to these talk radios throughout the week at different times, and this guy that was on today, a guy called in and talked about the fact that Building 7 in free fall, and this guy who's supposed to be a, quote, conservative, he says, well, yeah, they had to pull it because the building was going to come down anyway. And it's like, wait a minute, buildings aren't rigged with explosives to be brought down at any moment.
I know.
I mean, and he just said that so coolly, as though that was just the way buildings are built these days. So, I mean, they've got it like a zipper. They can bring it down just by pulling this one little thread, and the whole thing comes down. It's just they build them that way. Don't you know that?
You know, Donald Trump, before he was elected or before he even ran, he was interviewed about those buildings, and he said it was. Oh, I can't remember, but it was obvious that he knew that it wasn't the official story.
No, Larry Silverstein bought.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
He insured those things for billions, and the insurance company came to him and said, sorry, that was controlled demolition. We don't pay for you blowing up your own buildings. And they said, you know, we'll give you a third, but that's all we're going to do because, you know, you're running a scam with this whole government operation, and if we go to, you know, take it to court, we're going to show that it was controlled demolition. Right. We won't pay a dime. So he settled for a third. He still made money.
What a scam!
But they don't even the death of these people is secondary to these people. It's all about money, taking away our rights, our freedoms, controlling the population, disarming the population. They disarmed London because of a school shooting. So that's why they're having all these school shootings. So they're running the same game plan they did in London to disarm them. And right now, London has more murders than New York, but they're killing.
Thank you for using GTL.
Yeah, London had, I think, 6 or 9 knifing, slashing killings in one night this past week. So that's what he was talking about.